Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. There's the little one you all came to see. I hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things that you love. And those who love to do them with, guys, do me a favour. Smash the granny out of the like button for me like you always do. Your like game is insane. It's immense. It's crazy. And it is very much appreciated. Please also hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We've just passed 33k. We're on the march to the next one. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's transfer news, views and clues update. Also, guys, if you do prefer listening or watching this stuff on podcast format on your Spotify, then the link is in the description. Trying to grow that bad boy up as well. So if you do like that sort of thing, then get over there via the description, hit the link and hit the follow button over there. Guys, we've got some interesting stories for you today. Some names that I don't think we've mentioned many of these before, or at least a few of them before. And well, two of them look really interesting players for different reasons. Maybe they're not going to be like very gratifying for you because you've just come out off the back end of hearing, pause. We've just come out of hearing Daniel Levy and Vinny's comments around like ambitions to win the Premier League, to win the Champions League. We've just heard Thomas Frank's really nice welcome interview where he kind of basically said we're going to sit on the shoulders of the giants of Ange Postecoglou's tenure and run with it. We're not going to change everything. We're going to take what we've got and build from there. And you love to see it. It's not a complete 180. It's a gentle pivot. And we like to see it. But on top of all those things, you have to remember that that's just talk is cheap. Where the proof is in the pudding. Can he walk the walk? Will Daniel Levy give the necessary funds? Well, when you hear those things and you know what that means, right? If you're going for a Premier League, if you're going for a Champions League, if that's the ambition here, then you really have to be hearing, sort of noise and seeing activity with regards transfers that make you think we are taking it seriously, because you have to bake in what are Chelsea doing? Well, a lot. They're linked with players at the top end of the kind of the spectrum, if you like. We're also looking at Liverpool, 250 odd million quid already spent and more to come, no doubt. Manchester City, 500 million pound in the last 6 months. Newcastle United are trying to do business. They're trying to keep hold of Alex Isak. They're trying to move into other directions as well. Jonathan David, for example, players that we'd all no doubt love to see at Tottenham. And then you go, well, what are Tottenham looking at? Well, look, we know we were interested in Eze, but that's all gone a little bit quiet for now, hasn't it? We know we were interested in Brennan Johnson, but that looks like, although it's not confirmed, but it looks like it's a done deal that he's going to go to Manchester United once they get their act together with their budgets. Although Manchester United are very much a little bit cock-blocked right now by their inability to move on three stubborn players in Sancho, Garnacho and Rashford that they need to move on in order to kind of rebuild with they've got the draw still. Clearly they have the biggest brand and the draw to be able to get whoever they want. And the appetite for spending money is still there, but they can't spend what they don't have. And what they do have is locked up in long-term contracts and expensive wages that so far hasn't proven to be easy to shift. So we'll see what happens there. But the Mbeumo deal, that there might be ambition and it's a good player. I'd like to see him for sure. But whether it's going to happen or not remains to be seen. I very much doubt that. And after that, we're going for the likes of Semenyo. Maybe that's too expensive. Remember, Bournemouth are, at the moment, sort of trying to keep hold of their squad. They've got momentum. They've got the wind in their sails, outperforming relative to expectations. But, of course, they are trying to hold on to the likes of Kirkes, who looks like he's going to go to Liverpool. They've already sold Huijsen to Real Madrid. Is the next one Zabarnyi? If so, can they really hold on to him as well and rebuild their entire defence at the same time? Semenyo and Justin Kluivert, who's a link for both Tottenham and potentially other teams in the Premier League, but also for Bayer Leverkusen, who've got all that money to spend following the Florian Wirtz deal. So, when you're looking at these links that Tottenham are linked with, you're going, well, where's the movement to justify, to kind of validate this sort of vocalised ambition? And then today you come out with these stories that I'm about to bring to you, and most of them, I'll be entirely honest, you probably won't have heard the names, or if you have, then good for you, but they're not players that are necessarily going to be needle movers in terms of your ability to sit up and go, wowzers, we mean business. But that doesn't mean that they're not very interesting players. Young players, maybe these are the kind of ones where the sprays and plays, they're not going to be make up the bulk of our transfer activity, but maybe one or two of these coming in to satiate the needs of our owners who want to always be looking for, sell on value, asset appreciation. But the first name is Guessand. He is a Nice striker, inside forward actually, not necessarily a striker. £25 million is his asking price. In 33 games last season, the 23-year-old got 12 goals and 9 assists. Look, I look at his stats. I'll throw them up on the pitch for you in case you're not aware of him. He's a very, very interesting player. He reminds me, and I know this is probably going to sound a little bit lazy because he does almost look like him as well, with the kind of medium length dreadlocks a little bit, but he does remind me a little bit of Emmanuel Adebayor with the way that he runs at the ball. He's tall, he's languid, he's got long legs, but he's very clever with the way that he can drive at players. He comes a little bit deep, comes a little bit deeper to pick the ball up. He's clever, he interlinks play, and he's got loads of potential. The way that I see it, his goal contributions in and of themselves are very clever, but he also likes to kind of interweave opportunities for other people. So his contributions and his kind of involvements in goals is a primary value piece. Like I say, he makes intelligent runs. I really like the look of him. Don't know too much about him. I haven't seen him play too much, but I did run him through the Y-Scout tool. And like I say, his stats do look kind of Ratatatar-esque. And I don't mind it, but like I say, if that's the sort of player, same with like a Calimuendo, different sort of physicality, different strike, different sort of obvious sort of visual approach to football, but they both can do a little bit of a multifaceted style of football where they can play on the inside forward role, which will suit Thomas Frank's version of football more so than it would have done the traditional Ange ball, if you like, because he's more like touchline touchline hugging wingers, whereas Thomas Frank probably plays his forwards a little bit more narrow. So you can see the logic behind it, and I think you can also see the logic of just the story. There's a hell of a lot of links, not just for Tottenham right now, but all over the Premier League to players that are emerging from France. Obviously, there are major problems in the French league with financial kind of capacity. The media deal isn't going so well, and last season it somewhat collapsed to a degree, or the financing, the ability to pay the clubs has sort of broken protocols as far as I understand it, and consequently a lot of the players that have come through into the French league and where the French teams were paying sort of decent money, £25 million sort of category type players, with the hope that these players would improve. Well, a lot of them have improved, but these clubs are now still kind of forced to accept what they can get to be able to get themselves out of the financial binds they are in. And so, as I've always said, whenever there's a bargain, you can sniff it and you can see that Daniel Levy's going to look in that direction. So I've got sweat in my eye, it's so hot here. But it's also going to be something where a lot of other clubs are looking at these sorts of players as well. Calimuendo is one. We've already said that he's linked with Leeds, he's linked with Everton. As to, is this guy Evan Guessand? I think his name's Guessand. I'm sure that's how you say it. Anyway, interesting player. We shall see whether those links develop. The next one for you is a player called Adem Zorgane from Algeria, who plays for Sporting Charleroi in Belgium. Now, this guy, he's 24 years old, maybe 23 or 24, maybe he's 25 actually. He's a midfielder, he's a CM, right? 30 games, 1 goal, 4 assists. I hadn't heard of this guy. I hadn't sort of been looking on the Y-Scout recently for that sort of player, but I tell you what, I'm going to throw this guy's stats up on the screen because they are green shoots of delight. He looks like an absolute baller, and then I ran him through the visual test on the various departments of his game. I don't think I've seen a better passer, genuinely. Obviously, the standard is different. The standard's lower. He plays for the Algerian national team, so I was getting a lot of the highlight reels from the kind of the national team spectrum, and obviously watching him for Charleroi. Is he going to get enough time to sort of to work with the ball in the Premier League? I don't think he would, absolutely not. But he does look like a really, really, really cracking passer of the ball. He loves it. I'm calling him Sir Pings a lot. He can get the ball deep and just looks up and pings it into corners, pings it into through balls. And you can go like hundreds of examples deep of amazing passing technique. This guy really does look like a connector in chief. Tackling, he's not afraid to get stuck in, but I wouldn't say it's the strongest part of his game. If you're looking for someone who can create from deep, like a playmaker type player, but in a deeper role, then this guy might be interesting. But he's 10 million. I think he's only 10 million euros. He's valued out, or 15 million euros according to 10 million pound according to Transfer Market. He has asked to leave, and Tottenham are one of the names that are sniffing around this guy. And listen, if he was going to Brighton, then I think everybody would sit there and go, oh, Brighton have found the next worldie, right? So, I'm not saying that he's a worldie. I'm just saying I'm not a scout. I'm just saying that the Y-Scout tool, he looks like an absolute baller with the ball at his feet. He loves to sort of turn and run, and his stats, again, compared to the top 14 leagues, not the top 5 leagues, I'll put them on the screen, they do look really, really interesting. Go and check him out. I don't know if there's too much in the way of like significant highlights on YouTube, so the Y Scout is where I've had to pivot into, but go and check him out. Let me know your thoughts on them. I think it's Zorgane or Zorgane. He looks an absolute an interesting player. Obviously not someone that you'd want to bring in as your starter because there's too many unknowns about the step up, and he's 25 years old. Is he just a late bloomer, or is he someone that, you know, should have been picked up by now if he really is as good as he looks? Like I say, again, just on the highlight reel, but what do I know? Next up for you guys is another name that you may or may not have heard before. I hadn't heard of him. Vladyslav Vanat, a Ukrainian player, 23 years old, plays out of Kiev. And this guy has got 28 appearances last season, 17 goals and 4 assists. Linked to Arsenal, Leeds, Everton and Spurs. He is a striker that, again, can play a little bit of the everything, it looks like we're being linked to all and sundry who are kind of versatile forwards that can play the 9, can play the 7 or the 11. And for me, this guy, I've got to be entirely honest, guys, he's another one that looks quite interesting. The way that I've sort of interpreted his football, he's very, very fast. He likes to be able to. Well, he has a shot like all the time. We're talking like 3.5, 4 shots per 90. He's got like a 40% accuracy, so it's a bit of like a kind of, no, I wouldn't say it's a hit and hope, but for a top level striker, you're looking for better accuracy than that. He doesn't mind shooting with his left or his right. He can get into really good positions, uses his pace, uses his sort of trickery and his cleverness, that's in the word, his intelligence, to shoulder people out of the way, to find a little bit of wiggle room to get into pocket shots, to pot shots, opportunities, and then has a crack. Sometimes they go a little bit awry, sometimes though, they absolutely ping it into the top bins. Really, really clever player. I'll be entirely honest though, I have no idea of what level Ukrainian football is at right now, especially given the war and how many foreign players probably left that league with the war in Russia and Ukraine. So I don't know whether the standard of football is right down here, and he just looks good amongst that level. But for sure, look, the numbers don't lie. 28 goals, 17 and 4. I'll also try and put the stats up if I can get them for him on this one, for the overall player, because we got like unknown entities here for a lot of us, so the stats tell us somewhat of a story. But do go and do your homework, guys, and look around on Y Scout, or if you have it, or if not, go and have a little cheeky look on YouTube and see what you think, because he is another one that's linked. This one's linked, like I say, to some bigger teams as well, not just Leeds, not just Everton, but Arsenal are looking at him as well. So 4 names there for you guys: Adam Zorgane, Eden Guessand, Vladyslav Vanat, and also Mohammed Kudus. I spoke about this one yesterday. The story is getting bigger and jumping around into sort of more serious journalist ITKs on Twitter. They're talking about it a lot. £85 million is the asking price for Mohammed Kudus. Is the release fee for Mohammed Kudus. £50 million may get the job done. He's 25 years old. Concerns here, or considerations for the fact that for Ghana, this guy has only scored 12 goals in 42 appearances. I do love Mohammed Kudus when he plays off the right. Since Graham Potter's come in, has their system shake-up changed a little bit? He's not really hit the ground running too much since Potter's come in, since January. All of West Ham had a bad season last year, so you won't necessarily hold it all against him. But he certainly hasn't sort of reached the same heights recently. His relatively recent form is nowhere near as good as his prior form in the Premier League. 32 games last season, 5 goals and 3 assists for West Ham. I would just say that there's definitely a player in there, and I think that the system change has kind of affected him a little bit, which is like a horses for courses thing. It's not the end of the world to admit that. It's just interesting though, guys, when you're looking around right now, I've been saying this a lot on Football Inc. And by the way, get over to there and smash the subscribe if you haven't already, link in the description, where we talk about total football, all of the different things, all the different transfers that are happening every day. For me, it just feels like right now, you have links. There's another link for you again today. More strengthening of the rumours of Xavi Simons. £50 million, I think it's 63 million euros. £55 million is going to be the fee that you could get him out of Germany into the Premier League. I would love to see Xavi Simons. He's not obviously the striker kind of role. He's definitely a 10 that can play a little bit off the left and right, but more of a creative player in that 10 role. If you were to go and get someone like that that is a predominant 10 and that can play off the left and the right, then what does that mean for the likes of James Maddison and Decky in the future? Obviously, we can't sell them right now because they are still recovering from injury, but are you okay with sort of selling one or both of those guys in the future if it makes room for one or two of these other names? But if he is the kind of the benchmark at that sort of price point from Europe, Mohammed Kudus for the same sort of money that's been here and done it and proven and tested, you have to ask the question, why the drop-off? As I say, I think it's down to the change of system, the change of tactic a little bit, and whether or not he is going to kind of just re-emerge in a better system and a sort of happier environment, then could he be sort of repositioned and get the best version out of him? If he can, then £50 million really isn't that much money anymore. And it's an interesting environment right now when you have the likes of Semenyo that's going to cost you 75 million, Bryan Mbeumo that's going to cost Manchester United probably 70 million. You got Matheus Cunha that's cost 63 million. It feels like that standard, that sort of level of top talent is about 60 million quid. And I feel like that, compared to recent seasons, is not too bad, especially when you're looking at the likes of Florian Wirtz, who might be the most exciting player in world football, the most exciting young player to come up, and he might end up being a monster in the Premier League. But at the same time, 130 odd million pound, is that what it's going to cost? Or I've got an itchy nose. 125, 130 million pound and 350 grand a week or whatever he's earning from Liverpool as well. Massive outlay from Liverpool into a transfer market that's been a bit of a damp squib so far, but where nobody else is really willing to pull the trigger on players that they might not be as good as Florian Wirtz, but are they half as good or even more than like 35, 40% as good as Florian Wirtz? I would say that they might be on the second tier, but they're not that far away. And as Ange Postecoglou used to say, the difference between the best and the very best really isn't that much down to technicality. It's down to mentality and how much can you gather from the mentality of a guy that's only been doing professional football for a few years in Germany, in Florian Wirtz. I think that Liverpool have overpaid massively for him. He might end up being the greatest player ever, but it's a massive risk. And how many of the plus £100 million transfers in the history of football have been successes? I'll give you a clue, not many. Either way, if that is the kind of the precedent that's been set in this window for Premier League clubs, it sure as hell won't get broken by the end of the summer. That's it. That is the number one biggest transfer of the summer for sure, in my opinion. But can you go around and find a player that is at that £60 million, up or down, give or take 5, 6, 7, 8 million quid from there, to get someone that's really going to manufacture some opportunity and to kind of craft some new versions of yourselves? I think that there's loads of names out there, and yet no one's pulling the trigger. Not just in the winger market, but in the forward market as well. Why is it that no one has moved yet on Gyökeres when they're only asking 65 million quid for him? Why is it that no one's officially moved for Sesko yet when they're only asking for about 70 million for him? It seems odd. It seems very odd, and as I've been saying on Football Inc., I think it's a Mexican standoff type of thing where no one wants to pull the first trigger and shoot the first gun or shoot the first bullet because they're not sure where the market is yet. Hopefully when the Club World Cup is done, then everything will just spice up. The domino will fall and everything can crack on from there. But for me right now, guys, it just feels like it's a little bit surprising that you can get such quality for valuations of around 60 million quid, and I'd love to see Tottenham, who should have enough money to not let us down this summer, to be able to go and get one or two of those players, especially if you're going to sell Sonny. Does Sonny's valuation come down in line with these other people? Probably, but then how much does he get from shirt sales? How much of the shirt sale kind of like commissions, if you like, goes to Sonny versus goes to the club that would sign him? It'll be interesting to tell and interesting to know. Last story, I did mention Xavi Simons already, guys. That is another story that's percolating around for you today. And the last one that's out, we spoke about this yesterday, Vicario at AC Milan looking to replace maybe the outgoing Mike Maignan, who wants to go to Chelsea, but Milan is saying no chance you're leaving unless A, you meet our asking price, and B, we can find a replacement. They've earmarked Vicario. I mean, some of the names that we've been linked with, I'll be entirely honest, I'm not too familiar. I looked into the Atalanta goalkeeper. He does look like a really interesting goalkeeper, but I don't think that there's any goalkeepers out there that are not without their vulnerabilities, not without their weaknesses. I don't think that Vicario is an absolute top draw goalkeeper, but I don't really want to add too much more fuel to the fire of an already disrupted and very influx transfer window. So I'd rather see Vicario stay, park that conversation for a year. Let's just give him another year, see how he gets on, and then hopefully Kinsky will have his chance to develop as well, because it's just another complication if you make that deal. And Tottenham, according to all reports today, are saying they're not interested in selling. They're going to test or going to resist the resolve and basically say no to AC Milan's advances unless absent some sort of push from Vicario to go back to Italy. I'd be surprised if Vicario wants to leave. He's been a leadership figure. He certainly comes across like someone who's very much behind the team, behind the mission, unless maybe he is someone that had a very close connection to Ange Postecoglou. as we keep hearing, a lot of these players apparently were super close to Ange Postecoglou, but you know what? They've all come out and said their goodbyes like everybody else does, but you are a paid employee of the football club. Get on with your job. We've all been in operations and offices, no doubt, at times where you've changed your manager. Maybe you lost a good manager. Maybe you inherited one that you weren't as fond of, but you still got on and do your job because that's what professionals do. But you know, that's the story. Vicario to Milan, 25 million quid. Tottenham are saying no dice, no thank you. And that's okay with me. It's okay. Like, it's okay if Tottenham do sell him, because I don't think he's like, I'm not married to Vicario in terms of thinking he's the best thing that we could ever have. But I just think that right now we've got much bigger fish to fry in our pursuit of improvements in the squad. And listen, Evan Guessand, Adem Zorgane, this guy, Vladyslav Vanat, as I say, they're all names that, unless you guys are super close to football in foreign leagues, like to that level, you may or may not have heard too much about them or know too much about them. Let me know if you have. Let me know if my take on any of those players is different to yours, is alien to yours. But for me, I'm just sitting there thinking, you know, I don't mind if any of all these players look good. They all look interesting, but none of them really get my juices going. None of them really make me think that the noise that we saw in that video from Daniel Levy and Vinny about the ambitions to win the league, and the story that we heard from Thomas Frank yesterday around his intentions to sort of go and do really good things here at this football club. None of these guys are the sorts of names that you want to be linked with immediately after hearing those sorts of game-changing, ambition, vocalised words. Talk is cheap, walk the walk, let's see what you're going to do. But if you can get a Kudus in, I really want to know what everyone thinks about Mohammed Kudus, because there's a lot of Tottenham fans that I spent a lot of time with that were complaining for the last 2 years about overpaying on Brennan Johnson and saying we could have got Mohammed Kudus, why didn't we get Mohammed Kudus? And as soon as we're linked to Mohammed Kudus, they're now saying, well, I don't want Mohammed Kudus. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. Let me know your thoughts. Is he someone that makes you go, ooh, is he a needle mover? I'm not sure. Maybe. The previous version of him certainly was. This version, £50 million. For me personally, if we got £55, £60 million to spray and play on a creative player that can play a little bit of the wing, a little bit of the 10 role, I think Xavi Simons is my guy. I really like that guy. And if we can get him in, question marks about his strength and his stature. But listen, Luka Modric had it in spades. And I think that Xavi Simons is, could easily be someone of that sort of calibre where you don't have to be, an absolute bodyer to be able to be a success in the Premier League. It helps, but it's not an essential part. Anyway, guys, that's about it from me. We will leave it there. I'll see you this afternoon on Football Wink, and maybe later on, even tonight, for a live stream with you lot back here on the Spurs Talk Show. Like, subscribe, and comment. Get over to Spotify if that's your thing, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.